action. Prescott could not get away. Yes, he did. He shook off a sack, rolling to the right.
CeeDee Lamb has now caught more passes than any Dallas Cowboy receiver ever.
Micah Parsons, watch him. He's ready to pounce.
He gets off the ball as fast as anyone.
And Micah Parsons is going to wrap him up for a big sack.
There it is. Bryant for the 5th time has a pick six. It's never happened in the history of the NFL.
We have established a championship program. We have the right people, but we have not crossed the threshold of winning playoff games. I have a job to do.
The 2023 NFL season has come to a close, and despite league leaders in nearly every category and an NFC East title for the second time in 3 years, the Dallas Cowboys season comes to an end in the wild card round in a bid for something better. Welcome into the 2023 year-end special. I'm Kyle Youmans as we break down what went right and what went wrong for the Dallas Cowboys in 2023. They had so many statistical anomalies, records that were broken, highlights throughout the season, but it did end in disappointment with a loss to the Green Bay Packers. We've got Barry Church, Isaiah Stanback, and Nate Newton. I'm Kyle Youmans to break down this entire campaign for the Dallas Cowboys and the future of what is to come with this organization in 2024. But Barry, I'll start with you. It ultimately wasn't enough. The Cowboys, the number 2 seed in the NFC, had a division title in their bag. Home field advantage for not 1 but 2 rounds if they took care of business, but it did fall short. Why does this season stick out a little bit more than some of the failures of playoff past?
I think you just said it there, Kyle. When you talk about how everything was set up for this team, I mean, they had the perfect opportunity to make a long run into the playoffs. They had, like you said, 2 opportunities for 2 playoff games, and I believe they would have went against teams that they would have been favored in. And to me, what was most disappointing about this loss was this team looked unprepared. They looked unprepared for the smoke that Green Bay had to bring into this game, and that's very uncharacteristic of a McCarthy-coached team.
It was Smokey, no Robinson, because them guys definitely got dominated. That's the reason why I feel like this loss and this season was more of a disappointment than the ones prior. These guys were physically dominated, and that's something that we had talked about all season long, how these guys cannot get handled in the trenches, how you have to be able to be physical. You have to enforce your will. You talked about the home field advantage. You have everything behind you, and you think that you would come out as prepared as you need be to go out there and enforce your will, and you just didn't do it. You seemingly didn't show up. You got punched in your mouth in your own house. You didn't punch back until late in the 4th quarter, and it was just too late.
It's just the same Dallas Cowboys to me. I mean, you overcame a few things during the season. You overcame teams with the losing records. The team with the winning records. You dominated that. You took care of Philly. You took care of Detroit. And then you come into the playoffs, and you did the same thing. You let the run game expose you. The penalties showed back up. Our quarterback is not as consistent as he needed to be. We have to change these things, and I hope Coach McCarthy this year will.
Nate, you talk about the consistencies and really some inconsistencies throughout the year. Were there red flags throughout the 17-game season that pointed to something like this happening in the playoffs?
Definitely. I mean, when we faced teams that had the ability to run the ball and make us a two-way team, well, our defense didn't know how to set up, offensively and defensively. And it showed and exposed itself again, and the penalties were massive.
Yeah, the penalties obviously is something that stuck out, as you just mentioned, Nate. But one of the things that I'll say it again is the physicality in the trenches. You got dominated against the 49ers. You got dominated against Buffalo. Teams that had the ability to run the ball and force their will against you, and you couldn't return the favor on the offensive side of the ball.
Yeah, the biggest red flag I saw was that Buffalo game. I mean, that's all I needed to see. When you saw James Cook go for 266 yards, and they only threw the ball 15 times and still were able to beat you 31 to, I think it was 10 at the time. Yeah. I mean, that's the biggest red flag you can see going into the playoffs.
There were lots of those throughout the year that you thought maybe were rectified by the time the playoffs came around, the way that the regular season ended, and you had that momentum going into a home stadium where you had not lost in any of the regular season matchups, but it did end up in a loss in the postseason. So where does this team go from here? Mike McCarthy will be your head coach in 2024. What does he need to change in order to have success moving forward?
The 2023 Dallas Cowboys Year-End Special, presented by Ford, is brought to you by Dr. Pepper, an official soft drink of the Dallas Cowboys, the one fans deserve. Miller Lite, taste you can depend on. and by your Texas Ford dealers. Ford is the best in Texas. This segment is brought to you by your Texas Ford dealers. Ford is the best in Texas.
With the way that the year ended for the Dallas Cowboys, there were some national questions around Mike McCarthy's future as head coach in Dallas. But those questions were answered by a leap of faith from Jerry Jones in the front office, something that can bring some excitement off of the culture of winning being built here at the Star in Frisco. With more on that, here's Nicole Hutchison.
It's no secret that NFL head coaches are hired to win championships, but it's also true that it's impossible to ignore the amount of regular season success the Dallas Cowboys have had under head coach Mike McCarthy, and it's led to one last ride in Dallas.
I can't classify it as the right move if I know it's not going to work.
I'd rather be going in a whole other direction.
Your quarterback played at an all-pro level under Coach Mike McCarthy.
Philosophical changes, schematic changes, there's a lot that Mike McCarthy has to do.
The biggest national headline in the NFL.
Which way you feel in the poker?
And one of the biggest postseason questions Dallas Cowboys owner and GM Jerry Jones had to address. Mike McCarthy's future. That will continue here in Dallas.
We have established a championship program. It's just not the world championship yet. We know how to win. We know how to train to win. We have the right people, but we have not crossed the threshold of winning playoff games. Extremely disappointing to be sitting here talking about it, but I know how to win.
One of the many reasons Jerry Jones is keeping McCarthy here to coach out his contract. Under McCarthy, the Cowboys have finished with 3 straight 12-win seasons and a pair of NFC East titles.
Frankly, that's part of the disappointment because I thought we had an unbelievable team. I love the way these guys work. They're very coachable, and they love one another.
And McCarthy as their leader, so much that there was no hesitation having his back, even after their early playoff exit to Green Bay.
I've had the season that I've had because of him. This team's had the success that they've had because of him. I understand it's about winning the Super Bowl, and that's the standard of the league and damn sure the standard of this place. So I get it, but add me to the list.
And this is one of the hardest jobs in America, so I feel like he's done a tremendous job. All things in consideration. A lot of people against you, all the outside noise, and we kind of just made sure that we stuck our arms around each other, and he helped me a lot, with my career, and I feel like I learned a lot with him.
The official announcement of McCarthy remaining in Dallas only further proved his players support the culture he's built. The coach-player chemistry, the talent, the regular season success, it's all there, and Jerry Jones has taken note of it. The playoff success just isn't. McCarthy's 1-3 in the postseason, and the 6th straight Dallas head coach since Barry Switzer in 1995 to come up short of leading the boys past the divisional round. So where do they go from here? Well, McCarthy won a Super Bowl in his 5th year at Green Bay, so the message is simple.
I came here to win a championship. I didn't come here to get another contract or anything other than that. I came to Dallas to win the world championship, and that's why I'm standing here.
Like Nicole just mentioned, it has been a different story for Mike McCarthy in the playoffs than it was in the regular season. 3 straight 12-win seasons, certainly something to build off of. The players have been very vocal about how much they enjoy playing for Mike McCarthy as the head coach in Dallas. But with only 1 playoff win, there are some questions moving forward. So it is the final year of his 5-year deal that he signed in 2020 when he first became the head coach for the Cowboys. Isaiah, when you look at Mike McCarthy, what type of pressure is he under going into 2024, knowing that he really has one shot at this thing?
Oh, pressure bursts pipes, and he is under a lot of it right now. I can tell you that. The reality is Coach McCarthy right now is in a 1-year contract. He is in the last year of his contract, and he has to do more than what he's done so far. That doesn't mean that he has to win a Super Bowl in 2024 season, but he does need to get to the NFC Championship game. And if he doesn't do so, then he's going to find himself looking for a job, much like a lot of other coaches were this season. He did a good job, but it didn't do a great job. And what Mr. Jones is looking for right now is an exceptional performance, and he wants a ring on that finger before McCarthy walks away.
You've done it once, you've done it twice, you've done it 3 times, you've been 12-5. But what you have to do now is, like my man Isaiah said, you have to give us a second-round victory. You have to take us to the NFC Championship. Mojo moment starts for you today. Y'all start back.
And Mojo Moment, of course, a callback to training camp and really the early teaching of Mike McCarthy. One of the early goals that he had was he wanted to run the football more effectively in 2023. That didn't happen. Tony Pollard saw a season low or a career low season for him, going from 2022 when he was the backup, quote unquote, to Ezekiel Elliott to being the main featured back in 2023. Why was Tony Pollard not utilized in the way that he was a year prior, Isaiah?
Because he was the guy this year. Prior years he's been a complimentary back to Ezekiel Elliott, who was a power downhill, beat you up type of back. Now everybody's featured on him. Now he's expected to do majority of the pass blocking, and he just hasn't been utilized the way in which he was prior years.
And he turned out to be a great pass blocker. But more importantly, I think they need to use him as the secondary back. You bring in a guy to be a pounder, and our offensive line wasn't as consistent. Yes, we had 5 guys that played a lot this year, more than past years. But this guy needs to be the secondary guy, and our offensive line has to improve their play.
Nate, I feel like you bring up 3 different elements there. He comes off of an injury. He was a featured back for the first time in his career, and your offensive line wasn't consistent. Running the football behind them wasn't easy for this team. Tony Pollard with only 1 game of 80 yards or more this season, and that was week 3 against Arizona. But where the run game struggled, the passing game shined for the Dallas Cowboys. The passing game was at a historic high for Dak Prescott, CeeDee Lamb, and Mike McCarthy in his first season as play caller. Where can they grow from here?
This segment was brought to you by your Texas Ford dealers. Ford is the best in Texas.
In 2023, the Dallas Cowboys employed one of the best passing attacks in all of the NFL. Welcome back in to the year-end special. I'm Kyle Youmans. They were top 3 in points per game, yards per game, third down percentage, and giveaways. And it all started with Dak Prescott and his bevy of weapons.
It's a wonderful day to go have fun, baby. Wonderful day.
I know you gonna show out tonight. I know it.
Hey, we came on a mission. It's capture or kill, and we don't capture.
Cowboys have moved it to the 50, and Prescott takes a shot to Lamb.
No, CeeDee Lamb was on his way to bring your record early. He always open. He's always open.
You can take all the time back there. MG. If you got a fail, just literally sleep his ass.
Steps up, throws back of the end zone. There's CeeDee Lamb.
Yes, sir!
I want the world to know that MG made that play happen.
Hey, look, I appreciate everything this man does for him.
Deep and going to the middle, and there's Cooks all alone.
Oh, my goodness! Cook 'em. Greatness. That's what you are. Don't forget that. Don't forget that.
Runs up out of the pocket. Prescott fakes and throws to the right sideline.
We beat Mike. MG a country boy. He be fishing. He gonna reel it in every time.
Across the formation. Flipping the right flat to Ferguson. Horrible for a first down.
Oh! That's my tight end. Have you heard the word? Ferg is the word. Ferg is the word. Ferg is the word. The Ferg is the word.
Prescott with plenty of time. Lofts it end zone.
Let's go. Come on. Get this gone. Get this gone.
Word mix.
He got a little seasoning for sure.
He got a little seasoning in him.
For sure. Yeah, give me some meat on that. You want to eat it. You're done. I said he was waiting for you to get us out in the fourth quarter. I'm going to get us out.
It was the first year of the West Coast offense, or as Mike McCarthy and Dak Prescott named it very early on, it was the Texas Coast offense. And it worked for quite a while, at least throughout the regular season. Looked pretty good for this passing game. Dak Prescott, CeeDee Lamb, Mike McCarthy, a trio, along with Jake Ferguson thrown into the mix as well, that helped elevate this offense from what it was last season. Back with Isaiah and Nate. And Isaiah, I'll start with you. Dak Prescott, man, he had a phenomenal year as we take a look at some of the numbers that he had throughout. Look at the NFL ranks. Top 3 in yards, passing touchdowns. He was the leader. Then you had completion percentage as a career high and a career high passer rating as well. What made his season really mesh the way that it did?
It really came down to his decision making. And I think that he was very confident going into this season, obviously instilling that West Coast offense, making him have quick decisions, giving him quick outlets in the passing game. Some of the personnel groupings that allow for CD to have mismatches in the slots. All those things contributed to Dak having confidence going into the season and obviously being able to execute majority of the year.
And the way he moved around. I mean, he moved around in the pocket. He had great awareness. He got back to running the ball, getting first downs. He was just a more complete player. And like you said, Isaiah, that confidence was beaming.
And you also looked at his growth as the season went on. He got better and better, was even in the MVP conversation toward the end of the year. But that was really a testament to what he could do and the way he grew into that West Coast system and the way that Mike McCarthy made adjustments for Dak Prescott. One of those adjustments was feed CeeDee Lamb the ball. That certainly worked in their favor as well. Look at his ranks. As you could argue, it was a top 10 all-time season for a wide receiver. He led the NFL in receptions. He led the NFL in scrimmage yards. He had the 9th most yards ever receiving by an NFL wide receiver. And then he had the 5th most scrimmage yards by a wide receiver throughout a season as well. What made his season so special, and was this the best we'll ever see CeeDee Lamb?
Yeah, I think the system obviously made a huge contribution to him having a successful year, but also the fact that where they were aligning him up at, the mismatches that he was able to have, the yak yardage that it allowed for him to have. They were able to get the ball out of Dak's hands quickly. CeeDee Lamb had those one-on-one matchups, typically in the slot, able to win on slant routes, catch the ball, and then use his athletic ability to make big plays for his team down the field. Can he run it back? I believe that he can. I think you're starting to see one of the great receivers in this league really start to flourish.
I think it was his maturity and then ability to prepare every week because he's at different positions. And when you have to do that right there on a West Coast offense where you have to think because the different defenses on the read, this kid has matured a lot, and his preparation has been great.
Hey, talk about maturity. Year 1 to year 2 for Jake Ferguson was a step forward. Nate, I know you were always on the Jake Ferguson bandwagon. How important was his role this past year?
It was the most important thing of the year, bro.
Wow.
I know you don't want to hear this, Isaiah, but Jake Ferguson is coming, baby. Look out. 1,000 yards next year, maybe about 12 touchdowns. Come on, Jake. Come on, baby. He's my fantasy guy.
Listen, I can't argue with Nate, dog. You know, I was not on the Jake bandwagon when he first touched down simply because of his size and the need that this team had for blocking at that point in time. But he has become a security blanket for Dak Prescott. Shout out to Linda Wells in the tight end room. It seems like everybody he touches comes out and has great performances like this young man.
They're still going to need some blocking help at the same time. Facts. Receiving the football was never a problem, but they need somebody to pave the way moving forward. Who's going to pave the way on defense for the Dallas Cowboys in 2024? Dan Quinn is gone as defensive coordinator. He takes the head coaching job in Washington. How will things change for the Dallas defense next season?
There's quite a few coaching positions being filled around the NFL this offseason, especially in the NFC East, making things a little bit more interesting considering the Cowboys' ties. You have Kellen Moore, who's off to Philly as their new OC. Then there's Dan Quinn now taking over as the head coach of the Washington Commanders, leaving a historic mark on this Dallas Cowboys organization, having taken this culture and defense to a whole new level. From creating one of the greatest defensive units of all time in Seattle to holding one of the league's top 10 defenses in Atlanta as the head coach, Dan Quinn's been the defensive mastermind every team's desired, but very few have experienced.
Intercepted at the 1-yard line.
And in 2021, it was the Cowboys' time. The year before Dan Quinn arrived, the Cowboys had their worst defensive season. Under former defensive coordinator Mike Nolan, the Cowboys allowed a franchise-worst 473 points and starved for takeaways. So there was only one way to go from there, and it was up. And Quinn surpassed that by a large margin. His first season in 2021, the Cowboys ranked 7th in points allowed, giving up an average of 21 points per game and led the NFL in takeaways and interceptions. In 2022, they allowed just 20 points per game, ranking 5th and staying the #1 team when it comes to takeaways.
side. It is intercepted by Diggs.
2023 was no different, boasting yet again one of the better defenses in the NFL that includes turning DaRon Bland into a historic NFL figure.
Bland has done it again.
But it wasn't just the play on the field that made the 180 turnaround. It was the culture as well.
Hey, how far got them dominate with your Brooklyn?
He does a great job finding ways for you to love the game, find ways to go around the game. It isn't always has to be hard-nosed. I think it's more of a friendship. He tells me what we go through, what I don't like, what I do like. So he don't just treat me like a player. He treats me almost like a friend.
Being on the Mike McCarthy and DQ system for the last 3 years, just feel like we have a great understanding of our brotherhood here in this locker room, and how to play off each other, and those little adjustments that we have to make game time.
The final ride didn't end on the note the Cowboys had hoped, but now Dan Quinn will take the keys for an organization that is a long-time and familiar NFC East foe of the Dallas Cowboys, the Washington Commanders. Filling in the missing pieces is the typical offseason agenda. But now, for the second time in 4 years, the Cowboys will have a new defensive coordinator doing it.
It really is a large hole that is needed to be filled for this Dallas Cowboys organization. Nicole Hutchison doing a great job of outlining really exactly what Dan Quinn meant to this franchise. He brought it from the bottom of the league back to the top of the league, and now he leaves behind a couple of All-Pros in doing so. Isaiah, when you look at how things will change, how big of an impact did Dan Quinn have on this defense?
I mean, you saw saw it turn on his head literally overnight, seemingly, from the time that he came in to the time that he's now leaving. Went from the bottom of the league, as Nicole just mentioned, all the way to the top, and he remained there during his duration. These guys were able to connect with him. They were able to have somebody that they considered to be a friend, a mentor, and a coach. You heard Micah say it right there in that side where he wasn't a coach that was going to get down on you. He wasn't going to yell at you, get on top of you like the old school mentality. He was somebody who was going to come down to your level, communicate with you, have expectations of you, and then get the best out of you somehow, some way at a personal level. And you see everybody who speaks about Dan Quinn holds him in high regard. He was able to utilize all the talents of every single person that's on this roster, and he did so in an unorthodox way. He talked about the 3 safety system that he listed #1 in the league in terms of dime packages. He did things his way, and the guys loved it.
So now that the search is ongoing and this franchise will look for a new defensive coordinator, what's one thing that the new defensive coordinator has to have?
He has to be able to connect. He has to be able to connect with these guys. He has to have personality. He has to be a little bit loose while still having the discipline that's required to be able to go ahead and work with these guys and get the best out of them. But I don't think you could bring a guy in who's just an old school, hard-nosed coach because I'm not sure that the guys can really connect. They have to be creative also because you can't turn this roster over to change it over to the type that they particularly like.
It's going to be a balance that has to be had between the new defensive coordinator and what they have moving forward. And what they have are a couple All-Pros left behind by Dan Quinn, like we mentioned. When we come back, we take a look at the secondary. How does DaRon Bland and this defensive back group take a step forward? Some would call it an up-and-down season for the Dallas Cowboys secondary, where injuries and ailments attempted to derail the defensive backs in Dan Quinn's defense. But what ensued was not one of derailment. Instead, it was history that followed suit.
Ain't a whole lot to be said. One thing we know, we are the best in the world at what we do. Every time a step on that field against us, they gotta feel us.
Now let's make plays. We all we got, bro. DB's on 3. 1, 2, 3.
DB.
And Jones throws it out to the left. Fumble! Recovered in the air at the 20.
Hey, public service announcement. Public service announcement. Do not throw the ball.
Down the left side. Pressure coming again. Throws it out. Intercepted. The 25 play action. Young throws the ball. Intercepted. He did it again.
Y'all better stop playing with that, man.
He did it again.
Damn. Let's go get the rock. Let's go get the ball. Let's go get the rock.
2:12 in the game.
I need a play. I need a play.
Goff back. Throws it left. Laporta. Intercepted by Donovan Wilson.
That was animal. That was animal.
Bottled up. throws back to the edge, intercepted. DaRon Bland.
That's the Mount West guy.
He's the Cowboy.
2nd and 10. There it is. This is history. If Bland can take it the distance, this will be the record. Bland for the 5th time has a pick 6.
Greatness. Do some fun. Hey, if they don't give him the superstar, if they don't give him the superstar, I'm going to lose my house.
What a season it was for the Dallas Cowboys secondary, despite an injury early on to Trayvon Diggs. And these are, of course, some of the interception leaders right there at the top of the list. You have Trayvon Diggs back in 2021. Everson Walls up there with 11 picks. Now you have DaRon Bland in the conversation with 9 interceptions this season. It really is a DB mindset for this Dallas Cowboys franchise all the way back to the Everson Walls days as we welcome back in Isaiah Stanback and Barry Church. Let's start with Trayvon Diggs. Week 3, we rewinded all the way back. He suffers an injury in practice, out for the campaign. Barry, when you look at the secondary, how much did the Diggs injury impact what this secondary looked like?
Well, I'm not going to lie. I thought the injury to Diggs was going to be a lot more significant than it actually was in the season. And that goes kudos to Al Harris, Joe Wood Jr., and those coaching staff to making sure that everybody underneath Diggs was ready to go. But when you got an all-pro, a Pro Bowler, a guy with 11 picks in one season go down like that, you thought, man, this secondary is going to be in trouble. They're not going to be able to be as aggressive as they were early on in the season with him. But those guys stepped up. Dan Quinn was able to call the same type of aggressive man-to-man defense that he was able to do. And this defense, they flourished.
You absolutely said it all right there. I mean, you talk about Trayvon Diggs going down, your number 1 shutdown corner, but yet for the 2nd consecutive year, your guy, DaRon Bland steps up. So DB steps up. He goes to the outside. Jay Lou, who was going to be considered a backup role this season, comes in and becomes your slot guy, and then you brought in your Stephon Gilmore in this offseason. So you ended up with a solid trifecta out there at the cornerback position, including the nickel, and there wasn't a significant drop-off as you expected when Trayvon went down. But you add him back into the fold, got problems.
Should be fun in 2024 having number 7 back out on the field. And you go from losing Trayvon Diggs, 1 All-Pro, to DaRon Bland, who is now an All-Pro in his own right. What made his season so special, Isaiah?
His preparation. It's simply his preparation. This dude's not just out there seeing ball and going to get the ball. He knows what these guys are doing. He's studying the film. He's able to eliminate routes based upon the alignments and personnel groupings, and you see him jumping these routes because he has already condensed them down to the minimal options. He's able to see it coming out of the quarterback's hands, see the footwork of the quarterback. Then when the quarterback puts the ball on the inside instead of putting it on the outside, if it's a misstep there, he's making them pay for it. So this not only is he going out there and grabbing the ball and picking this thing out the air, but as you saw this year, he set the record by going out there and taking that thing to the house.
Yeah, you just said it, Isaiah. It all comes down to football IQ. And for a guy that young in his professional career to be able to do that is outstanding. I mean, going from being on the inside corner, the nickel corner, which I believe is one of the hardest positions in the National Football League, to go in there and master that and then be able to move outside on the outside corner and have 9 interceptions, lead the league in interceptions, make history by taking 5 of those interceptions back for touchdowns. It just goes to show you how great of a player this guy is, and the sky's the limit for young DaRon Bland.
He had more defensive touchdowns than any team in the NFL this year. Not players. DaRon Bland had more than any team in the league. But let's talk about the safeties, because there were some times in the season where the safeties looked good, and then there were other times where safeties were playing out of position, i.e. Marquise Bell at the linebacker spot. Going from a former safety, Barry, did Dallas put too much on their secondary in that regard?
Yeah, when you talk about Bell playing at that linebacker role, I think they put a little bit too much on a young man's plate right there. I mean, you got a guy that's 210 pounds right there, and I could see if he was in there for a third down situation or passing down situations where he was unbelievable at that position. But when you go down in and down out for weeks on end at him being in that second level, battling with those offensive linemen at the second level, eventually it's going to catch up to you, and it caught up to the Cowboys in the worst way against the Green Bay Packers in the playoffs.
And, of course, they may take an opportunity this offseason to upgrade at that position and to upgrade at linebacker as well, so they don't put a guy like Marquise Bell in a situation like that moving forward. But you know what helps out the secondary? What's that? Good pressure up front. And you're always going to have some good pressure when Micah Parsons is in your pass rush. What can he do to take his game to the next level in 2024? We'll talk about that when we come back with the year-end special.
win on first down, they can't push no tush, you know what I'm saying? They can only push a tush so far now. Rah! Lions don't talk. Yeah, they do. Yeah, they do. Oh, there's 2 of them now. Wow. Yeah, they do. They just hunt. They let their presence be known.
It's a glorious day. We get to go to war with our brothers.
Yes, sir.
Make sure you represent your name on the back of your jersey real well.
Oh! As the ball came out, Parsons has it and running away.
Oh, go Micah, go Micah, go Micah.
Herbert back, rush, hit, sack.
You're going to go home and watch this film and say, beat my ass. If everybody else there play up to the standard and we lost, I beat your ass. I want you to know that.
Wow. To throw, Parsons covered. Parsons got him.
Oh, the boy got the hunt. It's scary out there, I'm telling you. Let's go! Let it rain! Rain, street, snow, we coming!
Under pressure.
Get that.
Let's make these quick before halftime. Let's make them quick before halftime.
Shotgun, inside handoff, and look at Fowler. And the first play is a run to Hall.
Get him, Lau.
Coming left, why don't you sit down? Pressured by Fowler. They got a hand on him, and they...
Bro, I don't understand why they just don't let me get the sack. Like, why throw it in the traffic? That don't make sense.
It was one of the strengths of the Dallas Cowboys throughout the 2023 season, but the defensive line as entertaining as ever with Micah Parsons, DeMarcus Lawrence, Osa Odighizuwa, and really the whole cast of characters. Our cast of characters, Barry Church and Nate Newton. I'm Kyle Youmans breaking down this defensive line, and it starts with Micah Parsons. It really starts and begins with Micah. He continues to put up phenomenal numbers. It's hard to believe he's already concluded 3 years in the league. Some opposing quarterbacks probably believe it's been a whole lot longer than that. But how can he continue to improve his game going into next season?
Well, Micah Parsons is a flat-out stud. I mean, we all understand that he's a top 3 defensive player in the National Football League. But where I would love to see him kind of get his game going in the next direction is those big-time games. The playoff game against Green Bay, Detroit, those games where we need our star players to step up. He can't have a disappearing act like that. He has to be the same guy he is during the regular season as he is in the postseason. When he's able to make that step into the next echelon of a defensive player, that's when we'll get the most out of Micah Parsons.
Just steady. Some games are like he's lost out there versus the run. He has to be a bigger part of the run game. And once he impacts the run game, then there will be no stopping him. He's the elite pass rusher, yes, and he gets hyped for that. But for the way the Cowboys are being attacked right now, it's the run game. He cannot disappear during the run game.
And you had another guy on that defensive line show up in the run game. And Micah's absences a couple times. DeMarcus Lawrence put together another phenomenal year. Nate, when you look at D-Law, has he shown and proven that he can still be a capable member of this defensive line?
Oh, definitely. I like the way he plays. He plays with enthusiasm. He plays with smarts. He plays his responsibility versus the run and the pass. Yes, he's not going to get you 10 or 15 sacks, but he'll get you 7 or 8 sacks, and he'll have big play after big play versus the run during the season.
Yeah, without a doubt, to me, I believe he was the best run defender that this Dallas Cowboys defense had, and he affects the game in a multitude of ways, like you just said. It's not just the sacks. Even though sacks are great, he's getting those TFLs. He's getting those pressures. When he's blocked at the line of scrimmage, he's getting those hands up and batting balls down, and that's what I think the next phase for Micah Parsons is. When you're getting triple teamed, when you're getting double teamed by all those offensive linemen, you got to find different ways to affect the game, and you got to take the lead from DeMarcus Lawrence as well.
Yeah, and of course, the guys that are playing next to the edge rushers, those defensive tackles, Dallas wants to see a step forward in that direction as well. What's been going wrong on the interior? Is there something that can be done there to try and shore up what has been really a lacking position for this team?
Yeah, I think there's 2 things that go into play when you stop on the run game. One, I think they've missed on a couple of guys as far as the interior guys that really stop that run and keep the guys from getting to the second level. And secondly, I think it has to do with a little bit of the scheme as well. A lot of Dan Quinn's scheme is a lot of stunting and making sure you get early penetration, and that works great against teams that love to pass the football. But when you got a team that loves to ground and pound you like the Cowboys have seen towards the end of the season, those stuntings, those early penetrations, they just make the gap open up wider for running backs, and we saw Green Bay be able to take advantage of that.
We have to get Osa. He's made big play, then he disappeared. We got to get him a little bit more consistent in Osa, and we got to bring back Jonathan Hankins. That is our number 1 priority. We get Hankins back, we get Osa a little bit more mature and a little bit more consistent and find us another hog out there in free agency.
And you hope to see more from your first-round pick, Mozzie Smith, as well. You expected when he was picked at the 27th overall selection, Michigan, you bring him up in the right way, and he makes an impact for this team. That didn't necessarily happen as a rookie. And it also paid dividends for your linebackers when those guys did play well. Damone Clark thrust into a spot. Leighton Vander Esch hurt in the middle of the year. Marquise Bell has to step up and play out of position, which we will talk about in this show. But when you talk about Barry Church, this linebacker position, is that a huge priority for this Cowboys team this offseason?
I think just like Nate said, the number one priority was Hankins. For me, the number one priority has got to be on that second level with these linebackers. We've seen it too many times because it's not going to be perfect every time. You're going to have to be able to beat these offensive linemen that get to the second level. You're going to have to use your hands and get these guys to the side. And when you are 210 pounds in that area, it's going to be hard going against 300-pounders trying to shuck them to the side. Passing situations, Marquise Bell was amazing at. But we all understand, first and second down, those are running downs. We got to get a little bit bigger body in there.
Yeah, I think overall those linebackers will benefit from better play up front and hopefully from some extra bodies there as well. The only linebackers you really had at the end of the year were Damone Clark and then some guys off of the practice squad. That was what you had at that position. But we've got plenty to talk about because there's some free agents on the market for this Cowboys team going into this offseason. What do the Cowboys do with this free agent market, and how do they attack Tony Pollard possibly coming back to Dallas in 24 when we come back? Welcome back into the 2023 year-end special from the Star in Frisco with Barry Church, Isaiah Stanback, and Nate Newton. I'm Kyle Youmans, continuing to break down what happened for the Dallas Cowboys in 2023 and how they can have some success in 2024. And Stephen Jones, Cowboys Chief Operating Officer, says it quite often. It is a 365-day business of addressing this roster and building it for success. Here are some of the guys that are on the free agent market for the Cowboys this offseason, and it starts at the top with Tony Pollard, franchise tagged for 2023. What does his future have in store? Then you've got some offensive lineman starters on the right side of the screen, Tyron Smith, and your starting center, Tyler Biadasz. So Isaiah, I'll start with you on this one. Where does the priority lie on the offensive side of the ball?
You got to go with the big fellas, Kyle. If you don't have big fellas up front to create the holes, then it doesn't matter who has the rock in their hands behind them. I need to make sure that they have some big fellas up front, and I'm going to start with the guy who touches the ball every play.
Look, I love what you did right there with the offensive lineman, but I'm going to go with the guy behind him toting the rock. I understand Tony Pollard back there, and I believe we should be able to get him back in free agency, but you need some thunder to go with that lightning. We need somebody to marinate that defense so he can come through with the explosive plays. So to me, you got to go running back on the free agents market.
Yeah, tiebreaker, man, because I'm going with them big boys up front. We need to play better. Our center position has to play better, so we have to find us a free agent. But I love Tony, and I think at today's prices, where they're treating the running backs, we will get Tony back.
Well, Nate, whenever you talk about these offensive linemen, were there any names on that free agent list that you want back in Dallas?
You know what? I'd like to have Tyron back, but only as the swing tackle. We need a veteran swing tackle that can play this thing. And the way they practice him once a week, he should be healthy. So we can get Tyron Smith back. That'll be a plus.
Do you think Tyron Smith would be interested in that?
I don't know. I hope so. I definitely hope that he will be. That'll solve one big problem.
It really would. Now let's take a look on the defensive side of the ball because they have some notable free agents on that side as well. Stephon Gilmore played his one season in Dallas. Everybody pretty happy with the production that he had as a veteran reinserted into the starting lineup. Jordan Lewis had a phenomenal ending to the regular season. Then you have Dorrance Armstrong on that right side, a starter at the edge rusher spot who finished with 8 sacks. And you've got some defensive tackles there, too, that have been pretty good for you, Jonathan Hankins and Neville Gallimore. So, Barry, I ask you the question, how will this defense change going into 2024?
Well, we know Dan Quinn's not going to be the defensive coordinator, but it doesn't matter who the defensive coordinator is because when you look at it, that second level, they were too undersized right there. You got a guy at 210 pounds in Bell, and then you got a guy in Clark who's undersized as well. They were getting manhandled by the offensive line at the second level. So you got to get more beef under there so you can stop the run. The blueprint against the Dallas Cowboys defense, run the football, and you'll have success. We got to stop all that next year.
Well, the good thing about having a good linebacker is most great linebackers that have ever played in this game have some great defensive linemen right in front of them. So you need some big nasties, as my boy Nate Dogg would say, up front. Jonathan Hankins, please come back.
And I repeat, Jonathan Hankins, please come back. Jordan Lewis, hey, hometown discount, baby.
His hometown is Detroit, Michigan, so we'll see.
Oh, don't do
we'll
that.
see where it ends up there. Dorrance Armstrong, real quickly, gentlemen. Barry, would you bring him back on that list?
Of course, 8 sacks. I mean, that's productive.
And it depends on really what the paycheck looks like there,
This is
right?
true.
You got to find some value, and he may want to test the open market moving forward. But of course, we want to see this team set up for success in 2024. How will Jerry Jones get there? When we come back, we're going to wrap up the show, preview the offseason ahead. It'll be a busy one for Mr. Jones and this Cowboys front office as the year-end special returns in a moment.
The 2023 Dallas Cowboys Year-End Special, presented by Ford, was brought to you by Dr. Pepper, an official soft drink of the Dallas Cowboys, the one fans deserve. Miller Lite, taste you can depend on. And by your Texas Ford dealers. Ford is the best in Texas.
After 3 straight 12-5 seasons, an NFC East crown and league leaders across the NFL, the Cowboys have not had that postseason success, but there is hope for the future. Jerry Jones and this front office have a busy offseason ahead of them. Plenty of decisions to be made on the defensive side of the football. You can keep up to date with all of those decisions on DallasCowboys.com. For our entire crew, I'm Kyle Youmans, thanking you for joining us here on the year-end special. We'll see you in 2024.